Concerns have been raised about the well-being of police officers after recent figures show that mental health absences amongst Scottish policemen and policewomen have risen by 22% in the last 5 years.
But this is an issue that affects all officers, and we're joined now by the Scottish Police Federation Chairman David Hamilton, whose organisation is responsible for the findings. Tell us about these new statistics and the reason for these absences then.
Good morning. I think what we've had is a reporting of a 22% increase over the last 5 years. That's over 1,300,000 working days lost due to mental health illnesses in Scotland. And what I can confidently say, having spoken to colleagues across the UK and indeed across the world, I'm actually at an international policing conference today in Glasgow, and this is replicated all across the globe, frankly. And the reason for that is that policing is very much that service of last resort. It's where people come to when everything else fails, and people retreating back into their own core business. And police officers are left having to essentially pick up pieces and help members of the community. So what we're seeing today is just further evidence of that pressure that's been put on policing and on the impact it's having on individual police officers.
We rely very much on the police, rightly so, but I mean there's got to be a lot of things that officers go through that we just cannot imagine.
There are, and I think this is a complex mix here. So there is the traumatic experiences that we have to deal with, and the types of things that we have to see, smell, hear. It's all very traumatic at times. But there are also other aspects of this, and that's the interruption to people's lives. Police officers don't get the chance because of they work shifts, because of the fact that courts don't work shifts. They often have rest days interrupted, leave interrupted, and that inability to get away from the job is what's really causing so many problems just now. People are burning out because they don't get the chance or don't get to the chance to process the things which they're seeing, and that is have a direct impact on mental health.
And you can, as you describe it, you can understand why. David Hamilton, Chairman of the Scottish Police Federation, thank you so much for enlightening on all of that. But on this whole subject, I want to bring in now two serving police officers. They've both attempted to try and address this mental health crisis within the force. They've set up a Surfwell organisation, which has been formally trialled by the police to try and help staff who are struggling with mental health.
Well, James Mallows and Sam Davies from Surfwell join us now. Good to see you this morning, gents. Tell us what Surfwell is.
So Surfwell was started a few years ago by myself and James. It's basically a enhanced peer support program to tackle this exact issue that we're talking about now.
What does enhanced peer support actually look like in real life?
So we've built on a lot of science. The key thing is there's a lot of stuff in the media about cold water immersion, being in the cold, and kind of experiencing lots of different physiological changes that happen when all that goes on. So what we've sought to do is to put some of that science in place and to understand what happens at the magic point that all that starts to unfold in the water. And at the moment that happens, there's a police officer or a member of police staff stood next to you who goes through the same issues that you do and understands those same problems. So our participants are able to open up and talk about stuff much, much quicker, and often in much, much deeper terms. So it gives them a good kind of springboard to talk about things and for us to then refer them into other areas.
Interesting, because when we think about servicemen and women, who go off to theatres of war, we're used to hearing about PTSD and the problems with veterans and support for them and the charities surround that, Help for Heroes and the like. But perhaps sometimes we don't think about it in relation to police officers who don't get the chance to come back from a tour of duty. It's a permanent role. What are the sorts of stories and experiences that officers have come to you struggling to deal with? I mean, is this sort of attending murder scenes and seeing, the worst side of humanity, really?
It can be, yeah, it can be. We've had all sorts of different things on a very wide spectrum, from just burnout from the level of work that people are experiencing and the pressures of the volume of work that they're having to deal with, right the way through to some pretty traumatic incidents that they've actually attended. And the consequences of that, and it's interesting you mentioned the PTSD, because there were some statistics a couple of years ago that came out that estimated around 1 in 5 officers are in work while experiencing symptoms of complex PTSD, which is a staggering number of individuals, really.
Oh, look, you raise such good points, and I'd be fascinated to sort of know more about how the cold water and the surfing and all that actually helps, to see some case studies of that. But it's been fascinating to talk to you both this morning. James, Sam, thank you very much indeed. Appreciate it.
No problem.
Thank you.
Thank you.